The message came on a quiet Tuesday morning. At first, the radio operators at Earth's deep space listening post thought it was just another burst of cosmic noise. But this signal was different. It repeated in perfect patterns, too organized to be natural. Tom Miller stared at the message display in the control room of the research vessel Earthbound. After 20 years of searching the stars, humanity had finally received its answer. They weren't alone. "Sir, we've decoded the first part," said Jack, the young communications officer. His hand shook as he handed over the tablet. It's an invitation." The message was simple. To the emerging species of Sol 3, the Galactic Council welcomes peaceful contact. What followed were coordinates for a meeting point near Jupiter's orbit. Within hours, the Earthbound, humanity's most advanced spaceship, prepared for humanity's first contact with alien life. Captain Miller watched his crew work with pride. They were the best Earth had to offer: engineers, scientists, and diplomats chosen from every corner of the planet. "Final checks complete," Captain reported First Officer Walker, her voice steady despite the historic moment ahead of them. "All systems are green." The journey to the meeting point took 3 days. As they approached, they saw it. A ship that looked like liquid metal, floating gracefully against the backdrop of Jupiter's stormy surface. It was smaller than the Earthbound, but gave off readings that made their best technology look like children's toys. The alien ship sent another message. "Warning. Adjusting internal gravity to Sol 3 standards for your comfort. Current setting, 1G. Miller smiled. At least they were thoughtful hosts. The docking procedure went smoothly. Too smoothly, really. The alien ship seemed to do most of the work, guiding them in with invisible forces. As the airlock cycled, Miller straightened his uniform and prepared to make history. The alien delegation waiting for them looked nothing like the movies had predicted. 3 beings stood before them, each different from the others. One floated in what looked like a personal gravity field. Another moved on multiple delicate legs, and the third seemed to shift between solid and gas. "Welcome, Sol 3 representatives." The floating one spoke in perfect English. "We are the Contact Committee of the Galactic Council. I am first speaker." Everything went well until the traditional greeting. Miller extended his hand, remembering the briefing about being diplomatic. The floating alien reached out with what seemed to be their version of a hand. Then came the scream. Miller pulled back immediately, but the damage was done. The alien's appendage hung limply, clearly injured from what had been, to Miller, the gentlest handshake possible. "By the void," the multi-legged one exclaimed. "The pressure readings, impossible." It waved some sort of scanner at the humans. "Speaker, these readings must be wrong. According to this, they're from a... This can't be right." "Speak, observer," the first speaker commanded, still cradling its injured limb. "They're from a Class 12 world. A Deathworld." The reaction was immediate. The gaseous alien solidified completely in what seemed to be shock. The multi-legged one backed away so quickly it stumbled. Even the first speaker's floating field flickered. "That's impossible," the first speaker said. "No sentient species has ever evolved past stone tools on anything above Class 8. The gravity alone. Earth's gravity is perfectly normal," Walker said, confused by their reaction. "About 9.8 meters per second squared." This caused even more consternation. The aliens huddled together, speaking rapidly in their own language. Miller caught words like impossible and dangerous being translated through their communication devices. Finally, the first speaker turned back to them, floating slightly further away than before. "Captain Miller, you and your species, you mean to tell us you evolved naturally on your world? With that gravity, those temperatures, the atmospheric pressure?" "Well, yes," Miller replied. "Is that unusual?" "Captain, most council species evolved on worlds with 1/3 your gravity, stable temperatures, and no predators. Our bodies are quite different from yours. We had assumed you came from a similar world." Miller looked at his crew, seeing the realization dawn on their faces. To these aliens, Earth was literal hell. Everything about their homeworld, the thing that had shaped humanity into what they were, was a nightmare to the galaxy at large. The first speaker seemed to gather itself. We will need to convene an emergency council session. Please understand, we've never encountered a species like yours. This changes everything. Miller nodded diplomatically, but he could read between the lines. The galaxy had just discovered that humanity had been forged in conditions they considered unsurvivable, and they were terrified. The emergency council session was called within hours of first contact. The Earthbound's crew watched through the massive viewing window as hundreds of alien ships arrived, each more strange than the last. Some looked like crystal gardens, others like living clouds. All kept their distance from the human vessel. Miller and his crew were invited to observe the session from a special reinforced chamber. The council chamber itself was enormous, with thousands of different species represented. Some floated in anti-gravity fields, others swam in specially designed tanks, and a few appeared only as holograms, their real bodies too fragile to travel. Let the record show, the council leader began, that we are here to discuss the Sol 3 situation. The translator in Miller's ear worked perfectly, though he noticed some species communicated through colors or scents rather than sounds. The first speaker, their appendage now in some sort of healing field, addressed the gathering. Honored Council, I present evidence that the Sol 3 species, these humans, evolved naturally on a Class 12 Deathworld. The chamber erupted in chaos. Multiple species began releasing stress chemicals that made the air shimmer. Others changed colors rapidly or emitted high-frequency sounds of distress. Impossible, called out a crystalline being. Show us the proof. Images of Earth appeared in the chamber's center: mountains, oceans, deserts, and jungles. With each image, the council's agitation grew. They live in these conditions, asked a floating cloud of purple gas, but the temperature variations alone. That's nothing, said another delegate, displaying readings from their scans of the human crew. Look at their bone density, their muscle mass. They're like living tanks. Walker whispered to Miller. They're acting like we're monsters. A small, delicate-looking alien approached their chamber, moving with obvious caution. If I may, I would like to conduct a simple demonstration. It placed what looked like a metal bar in front of them. Could one of you bend this? Miller nodded to Walker, who picked up the bar. With a grunt of effort, she bent it into a U shape. The chamber went completely silent. That bar, the alien said quietly, is made of reinforced durasteel. We use it in starship construction. The council leader's voice shook slightly. And this is normal strength for your species. Actually, Walker said, I'm not particularly strong by human standards. Our weightlifters can. Enough, a frightened voice called out. We've seen enough. These creatures could tear apart our ships with their bare hands. Miller stepped forward. Council members, please, we mean you no harm. Humanity has dreamed of peaceful contact with other civilizations for centuries. Peaceful? Another voice scoffed. Your species evolved as pursuit predators. You can survive massive trauma. Your endurance allows you to literally chase prey until it dies of exhaustion. You can throw projectiles with deadly accuracy, a trait almost unique in the galaxy. You can survive radiation levels that would kill most species. The council leader raised all four hands for silence. Captain Miller, please understand our concern. Your species casually endures conditions that would kill most of us instantly. Even your children would be considered super strong by our standards. Quarantine, someone shouted. We must contain them to their death world. This started another wave of panic until the council leader restored order. We cannot simply ignore a spacefaring species, no matter how concerning their capabilities might be. Miller watched as the council debated their fate. Some wanted to isolate humanity completely. Others suggested studying them from a safe distance. A few brave souls even proposed limited cultural exchange, though they were quickly shouted down. "If I may speak," Miller said, his voice cutting through the chaos. The council chamber fell silent, all attention on him. "You see us as dangerous because we're strong, tough, and adaptable. But those same traits make us excellent builders, protectors, and problem solvers. We've spent our history not just surviving our world, but making it better. We could do the same for the galaxy." The council leader studied him for a long moment. "Pretty words, Captain, but you must understand. Everything about your species terrifies us. Your strength, your resilience, even your diplomatic gestures can accidentally harm us. How can we trust beings who could destroy us by accident?" Miller looked at his crew, then back at the assembled aliens. "Give us a chance to prove ourselves. Let us show you that humanity's strength can be used to protect, not destroy." The council chambers buzzed with discussion. Humanity's fate hung in the balance, and all Miller could do was wait. The species that had evolved on gentle worlds would decide whether to welcome or fear these newcomers from a Deathworld. The council's decision came 3 days later. They would allow limited human presence in galactic space, but with strict rules. The Earthbound and its crew would serve as a test case, closely watched by council observers. Miller didn't like it, but he understood their fear. His crew was assigned to help with routine tasks around the council station, always under supervision. The aliens had even installed special reinforced floors to handle human footsteps. Everything went smoothly until the accident in the power core. The alert blared through the station. "Warning. Radiation containment failing in Sector 7. All species evacuate immediately. Fatal exposure imminent." Miller and Walker were closest to the sector. They watched as aliens fled in panic, their environmental suits useless against the radiation levels. "There are still workers trapped inside," Walker said, checking the life sign readings. "The radiation will kill them in minutes." The council security officer, a tall being with crystalline skin, blocked their path. "The area is forbidden. The radiation levels are absolutely fatal." Miller checked his tablet. The radiation levels were high, but nothing compared to what an emergency crew on Earth might handle. "Walker, with me. We're going in." "But you'll die," the crystal being shouted. They ignored him. The emergency suits on the Earthbound were designed for much worse conditions. As they entered the sector, their radiation badges began clicking rapidly. "We've got about 20 minutes before we hit dangerous levels," Walker said. "Let's make it quick." They found the trapped workers huddled behind a fallen beam. The aliens stared in horror as the humans approached. "Stay back," one called out. "You'll die too." "Actually, we're fine," Miller said, lifting the beam with a grunt. Walker helped the aliens to their feet. "Our bodies can handle this level of radiation for a while. Let's get you out of here." By the time they reached safety, the story had spread through the station. Humans had walked into certain death and emerged unharmed. The council called another emergency meeting. This time, the tone was different. "You willingly exposed yourself to fatal radiation," the council leader asked. "Fatal to your species," Miller corrected. "For humans, it was dangerous but survivable. Our bodies can repair radiation damage to some extent, and our emergency suits are designed for even worse conditions." Worse. A floating alien turned slightly green. What could be worse? "Well, on Earth we have places called nuclear power plants, and sometimes they need repair work in." "Enough." The council leader raised their hands. "We begin to understand why your kind survived a Deathworld. But surely you feel fear. Pain. What drives you to risk yourselves?" Walker stepped forward. "Of course we feel fear. Pain too. We just don't let it stop us from helping others." A new voice joined the conversation. Perhaps we have been looking at this wrong." It was the first speaker, their injured limb now healed. "We saw their strength as a threat, but they use it to protect, to save lives." "They are still dangerous," argued another council member. "Yes," the first speaker agreed. But perhaps we need dangerous allies. The galaxy is not always a safe place. As if to prove their point, a new alarm sounded. Alert! Unknown vessels approaching. Non-council signatures detected. The tactical display showed 3 ships heading straight for the station. Pirates, according to the Council's database. Scavengers who preyed on weaker species. They're jamming our weapons, called out a tactical officer. Our automated defenses are useless. Miller looked at his crew, then at the Council leader. Those pirates aren't from a Deathworld, are they? No, they're from standard gravity worlds, like us. Miller smiled. Then, with your permission, the Earthbound would like to demonstrate another use for human strength. The Council leader hesitated, then nodded. Show us. As the Earthbound moved to intercept the pirates, Miller watched the fear in the Council chamber turn to something else. Hope. Maybe humanity's curse of evolving on a Deathworld wasn't a curse at all. Maybe it was exactly what the galaxy needed. All hands, battle stations, Miller ordered. It was time to show the galaxy that humanity's strength could indeed be used to protect. The Earthbound moved silently through space, its engines running dark. The pirate ships grew closer, unaware that humans had very different ideas about space combat than the rest of the galaxy. They're expecting us to fight like the Council ships, Miller said to his crew. All automated systems and energy weapons. They don't know what's coming. The Council watched through the station's cameras as the human ship approached the pirates. Many covered their eyes or sensory organs, certain they were about to witness a massacre. After all, what could one ship do against 3? Now, Miller ordered. The Earthbound's engines flared to full power. In the low gravity of space, the human ship moved with shocking speed. Before the pirates could react, Miller's crew had closed the distance. Impact in 3 seconds, Walker announced calmly. The Council gasped as the Earthbound slammed into the first pirate ship, not with weapons, but with its reinforced hull. The pirate vessel spun away, its engines dark. Did they just ram them? A Council member asked in disbelief. Boarding teams, go, Miller commanded. This was where humanity's Deathworld evolution truly showed its worth. In the zero gravity of space, most species became clumsy and slow. But humans, with their powerful muscles and excellent coordination, moved like they were born to it. The boarding teams shot across the gap between ships using simple thrusters. The pirates, expecting a traditional space battle, had no defense against humans literally breaking into their ships. This is madness, the Council leader exclaimed. They're leaving their ship to fight hand-to-hand in space. Through the helmet cameras of the boarding teams, the Council watched in amazement. The pirates, used to preying on physically weaker species, found themselves facing enemies who could bend metal with their bare hands. In the low gravity, human strength was even more devastating. The first pirate ship surrendered within minutes. Its crew couldn't believe what they were seeing. Beings moving at impossible speeds in 0G, tearing through doors, and shrugging off hits that would cripple their own kind. The second ship tried to run. That was a mistake. The Earthbound's engines, designed for Earth's brutal gravity, caught them easily. This time, the pirates gave up without a fight, having seen what happened to their friends. The third ship's captain tried to negotiate. "What are you?" his message asked. "No species fights like this." Miller's response was simple. "We're human. Surrender now." They did. Back at the station, the Council was silent as the human boarding teams returned, dragging their prisoners. Not a single life had been lost, though the pirates were thoroughly traumatized by their encounter with space demons, as they called the humans. "Impossible," one Council member whispered. They captured 3 ships by boarding them. In space, without automated weapons. Why not? Walker asked. On Earth, naval forces have been boarding enemy ships for thousands of years. We just adapted the technique for space. The first speaker approached Miller, this time without fear. You could have destroyed those ships from a distance. Why risk your people in boarding actions? Because that would have killed everyone aboard, Miller explained. This way, we captured the pirates with minimal casualties. On Earth, we believe the strongest should protect others, not bully them. The council chambers buzzed with excited discussion. These humans, whom they had feared as monsters, had just demonstrated not only incredible physical abilities, but also mercy and restraint. Perhaps, the council leader said slowly, "We have been too quick to judge. Your strength is remarkable, yes, but it is your choice to use it wisely that truly sets you apart." The first speaker nodded. "Indeed, we feared you because you evolved on a Deathworld. But that same evolution gave you not just strength, but courage, skill, and most importantly, compassion." Miller looked at the stunned pirates being led away. Sometimes the best way to prevent violence is to be very, very good at it, and then choose not to use it unless absolutely necessary. Word of the battle spread quickly through council space. The species that had evolved on gentle worlds began to see their Deathworld neighbors differently. Humanity's strength was still frightening, but now it was also reassuring. After all, who better to have as allies than those who had survived the unsurvivable? 2 weeks after the pirate incident, the Earthbound received an urgent distress call. The Council's largest space station, home to over 50,000 beings from various species, had suffered a catastrophic system failure. Its main reactor was overheating, and its rotation was becoming unstable. "The station's safety systems are offline," the council leader explained, their voice shaking. "We've evacuated most residents, but there are still hundreds trapped inside. Our repair teams can't function in the failing gravity and heat." Miller looked at his crew. They all nodded. The Earthbound volunteers to help. But the conditions inside. The council leader hesitated. "The gravity is fluctuating between 3 times normal and 0. The temperature in some sections is hot enough to melt metal. The radiation. Sounds like a typical Tuesday back on Earth," Walker said with a smile. "We've trained for worse." The council watched in amazement as the human crew prepared for the rescue mission. Their environmental suits, designed for Earth's harsh conditions, could handle the station's failing systems. Their powerful bodies, evolved to fight constant gravity, could handle the fluctuations. "Remember," Miller briefed his team, "most species here are adapted to gentle conditions. Be extra careful when handling survivors." The Earthbound docked with the dying station. Inside, it was chaos. The artificial gravity shifted wildly, sending objects flying. Panels melted from the heat of the failing reactor, but the humans moved through it all with practiced ease. "Engine room team, report," Miller called through the radio. "Sir, it's bad," came the response. "The main reactor's containment is cracking. But we can fix it. It's actually simpler than the old nuclear plants back home." In another section, Walker led a team searching for survivors. They found a group of aliens trapped behind a sealed door, the mechanism fused by heat. "Stand back," Walker warned. She braced herself against the shifting gravity and pulled. The door, designed to withstand normal accidents, stood no chance against muscles evolved to fight Earth's pull. The rescued aliens stared in wonder. You tore it open, with just your hands." "Well, the suit helps," Walker said modestly. "Now let's get you to safety." In the central control room, Miller and his engineers worked on the station's rotation problem. The council's technical experts watched through video feeds, amazed at how the humans handled the extreme conditions. "The heat should have killed them by now," one alien technician noted. "And the gravity shifts. On Earth, we deal with earthquakes, hurricanes, and volcanoes," Miller explained while reconnecting a broken control panel. "This is just another day at the office." Hour after hour, the human crew worked. They stabilized the reactor, restored the gravity controls, and rescued hundreds of trapped beings. By the time they finished, they were exhausted but successful. The station was saved. Back in the council chambers, the mood had completely changed. The same beings who had once feared humans now looked at them with respect and gratitude. "We must admit," the council leader said, "we were wrong about you. Yes, you are strong, but you use that strength to help others. Yes, you can survive terrible conditions, but you use that ability to save lives." The first speaker stepped forward. "We have a proposal. Would humanity consider training some of our species, teaching us how to handle harsh conditions, how to be stronger?" Miller smiled. "Of course, but you should know, our strength doesn't just come from our bodies. It comes from here." He tapped his chest. "From never giving up, from helping others, from facing challenges head-on." "Then teach us that too," the council leader said. "We've spent too long avoiding challenges. Perhaps it's time we learned from those who embraced them." News spread quickly through council space. The humans from the Deathworld weren't monsters after all. They were protectors. Their harsh evolution hadn't made them violent. It had made them capable of helping others in ways no other species could. The council began to see Earth differently too. Not as a horrific death world, but as a proving ground. A place where life had been tested by fire and gravity and radiation, and emerged stronger for it. Humanity's greatest curse had become their greatest gift to the galaxy. 6 months after the station rescue, the galaxy changed forever. Deep space sensors detected something massive emerging from a previously dormant wormhole. The council's scientists were baffled. The readings were off the charts. Miller and the Earthbound crew were in the middle of teaching a survival class to alien students when the alert came. The council chamber had never been so quiet as the images appeared on the main screen. They were ships, but unlike anything the council had ever seen. Black as space itself, each one larger than a small moon. The council's scanners could barely penetrate their hulls. "The Void Ones," whispered an ancient council member, their crystalline form dimming with fear. They were supposed to be just legends. The council's historical records told of an ancient species that had vanished millions of years ago. They had evolved in the space between stars, in conditions that made Earth look pleasant. Now, after eons of sleep, they had returned. The first attack came without warning. A council colony world went dark. When scout ships arrived, they found the planet's atmosphere had been ripped away. The Void Ones didn't need air or warmth. They were trying to remake the galaxy to suit their needs. "Our weapons are useless," the council leader reported grimly. "Their ships are too strong, their defenses too powerful. They evolved in conditions that would crush our strongest materials." Miller studied the tactical display. The Void One's ships were approaching another populated system. Millions would die if someone didn't stop them. "You said they evolved in space?" he asked. "In the void between stars?" "Yes," the first speaker replied. "Where temperatures approach absolute zero. Where radiation is constant. Where gravity is almost non-existent," Walker finished, catching Miller's train of thought. "They evolved in low gravity." Miller smiled. "While we evolved fighting gravity every second of our lives." He turned to the council leader. "Give us permission to try something. It might be crazy, but it might also work." The council, desperate for any solution, agreed. Miller's plan was simple in theory, but insane by any normal standard. The Earthbound would lead a fleet of volunteer ships directly at the Void One's fleet. "This is suicide," one of the council tacticians said. "Their weapons will destroy you before you get close." "Maybe," Miller replied. "But has anyone ever tried to actually board their ships?" The council chambers erupted in shocked whispers. Board the ships, in space, in battle. It was madness, exactly the kind of madness that might work. The Earthbound led the attack. The Void Ones, used to enemies fleeing in terror, were caught off guard by ships charging straight at them. Their weapons were devastating, but they hadn't counted on facing beings who could survive massive G-forces. "All teams, prepare for boarding," Miller ordered. "Remember your training. In their low gravity, we'll be stronger than ever." The human boarding teams launched, just like they had against the pirates, but this time backed by specially trained alien volunteers who had learned from humanity's example. The Void Ones, evolved for the empty space between stars, had never faced anything like the charging humans. Inside the massive black ships, the battle turned physical. The Void Ones were horrifying to look at, massive ethereal beings adapted to vacuum. But in combat, they discovered that their low-gravity evolution was a fatal weakness against humans. Walker's team captured the first ship's control center. Other teams followed, fighting deck by deck. The Void Ones, for all their advanced technology, had no defense against beings who could tear through their ships with pure muscle power. Their ships are connected to their consciousness, Walker reported back. When we take control of one, it affects them all. The tide turned. The Void Ones, faced with an enemy they couldn't comprehend, beings who were stronger in high gravity rather than weaker, began to retreat. Their legendary fleet, which had seemed unstoppable, was being defeated by creatures they considered primitive. In the council chambers, the aliens watched in awe as humanity turned the invasion force back. The same strength they had once feared was now their salvation. Perhaps, the council leader said quietly, evolving on a Deathworld wasn't a curse after all. Perhaps it was preparation for exactly this moment. 1 year after the defeat of the Void Ones, the galaxy was a very different place. The council's main chamber had been redesigned, now featuring a special Earth gravity section, where human representatives sat comfortably among their alien colleagues. Captain Miller, now Admiral Miller, stood at the podium, addressing thousands of species from across the galaxy. Today marks the opening of the first Galactic Academy of Survival and Defense, he announced, a place where all species can learn from each other's strengths. The Academy was built on what the Council had once called a dangerous world, not as harsh as Earth, but challenging enough to serve as a training ground. Humans served as the main instructors, teaching other species how to survive in tough conditions. Walker, now the Academy's chief instructor, watched as her first class of students practiced in the training grounds. A delicate-looking alien lifted a heavy weight, its naturally weak muscles enhanced by training techniques developed on Earth. Another species, usually afraid of heights, practiced climbing with human-designed safety gear. They said it couldn't be done, she told Miller as they watched. That species from gentle worlds could never adapt to harsh conditions. But look at them now. The changes went beyond just physical training. The Council had learned valuable lessons from humanity's example. They no longer avoided challenges. They faced them head-on. When a natural disaster struck a colony world, volunteers from multiple species worked together, using human techniques and their own unique abilities to save lives. Admiral, a young alien cadet, approached Miller, standing straight despite the higher gravity of the training area. The combined fleet exercises are ready to begin. The new Galactic Defense Force was a sight to behold. Ships of all species flew together, each contributing their own strengths. Human vessels took point in dangerous conditions, while ships from low-gravity species performed incredible maneuvers in space. They had learned to turn their differences into advantages. "Remember when they thought we were monsters?" Walker asked, watching the fleet formations through the Academy's windows. "Now they call us teachers," Miller replied with a smile. "Though I heard some of the younger aliens have started calling us Space Orcs. Apparently it's a compliment." The Council leader, visiting the Academy for its opening ceremony, floated next to them in their gravity field. They no longer showed any fear of humans. "Your species has changed us," they said. "We used to hide from the harsh realities of the galaxy. Now we face them, together." In the Academy's main hall, displays showed the many ways humanity's influence had spread. Ships now had reinforced sections where humans could use their full strength during emergencies. Space stations featured Earth gravity training rooms where other species could gradually build their strength. Even the galactic economy had changed, with human engineering making ships and stations safer than ever. But perhaps the biggest change was in how the galaxy's species saw themselves. The Council no longer divided worlds into safe and dangerous categories. Every world, every species, had something to teach the others. "Look," Walker pointed out the window. A group of alien children were playing in a specially designed park, attempting to climb structures that would have terrified their parents a year ago. Their own parents watched nervously, but proudly as their children grew stronger, braver. "That's the real victory," Miller said. "Not defeating the Void Ones, but showing the galaxy that challenges make us stronger." The first speaker, their old friend from First Contact, joined them. "Do you remember when I was terrified to shake your hand?" they asked Miller. "Now my species studies human medical techniques to make our bodies stronger. My grandchildren will grow up healthier than any generation before them." As the sun set on the Academy's first day, Miller looked out at the mixed group of humans and aliens training together, learning from each other, growing stronger together. The galaxy had feared humanity's strength, born from surviving a death world. But that strength had become a gift, a way to lift up other species rather than dominate them. "What's next?" Walker asked, watching a shuttle of new students arrive. Miller smiled. "We keep exploring, keep learning, keep growing stronger, all of us together. After all, the galaxy is a big place. Who knows what other challenges are waiting out there? And when those challenges come," the council leader added, "they'll find us ready. Not just humans, not just council species, but all of us standing together." Perhaps that was the true purpose of your Death World evolution, not just to survive, but to teach others how to thrive. The story of humanity's emergence from their Death World had become a legend in the galaxy. But the real legend was what came after, how the species that everyone feared became the teachers, protectors, and friends that everyone needed.